this situation is incredibly disturbing, and it like turned my stomach when I was doing my research about this. So there is a phenomenon called the Barbara Streisand effect, which states that when you try to censor, hide, or draw attention away from something, it actually has the opposite unwanted effect of drawing more attention to it. And this is exactly what Balenciaga is doing by filing a $25 million lawsuit against the production company North 6 and its set designer Nicolas Desjardins, who were in charge of their Spring 2023 campaign, which featured Nicole Kidman and Bella Hadid in an office setting where there were documents strewn everywhere with a black handbag on top. And there was a court document underneath the purse. And also, this is something that a lot of people have not noticed, there are these books that are on the desk from this artist whose name is Michaël Borremans. When you take this campaign, the Spring 2023 campaign, and you combine it with the Holiday 2022 campaign, with the young children holding those teddy bear purses in S&M bondage wear, things start looking a little strange. I mean, there just seems to be a lot of coincidences that happen back to back to back. Let's talk about this, right? So a few weeks ago, Balenciaga released a holiday campaign shot by the very famous Gabriele Galambertini. Sorry if I'm butchering the name, but he is a very famous photographer who's renowned and respected and has been featured in National Geographic. And he had a series of amazing photographs of children all around the world with their favorite toys. Now, these children are shown in different parts of the world, and I believe it's an essay or a commentary on the over-consumerism that happens in the US. Because as you will see, kids in the US have 4 to 5, sometimes 10 times the number of toys that kids in other parts of the world, perhaps in more impoverished countries, have maybe one doll, as this little girl in Haiti shows, right? So I think his story, his series of photos was trying to portray children with their most beloved toys. And then you turn to the holiday campaign where these children are basically assigned things, right? These are certainly not their toys. I mean, it's certainly inappropriate for children to be holding teddy bears in bondage wear, to be shown with flasks and alcoholic glasses. There are dog collars and dog leashes everywhere. I mean, it's just very strange and disturbing. And it's important to know that Balenciaga is not suing Gabrielle from the holiday campaign. Its lawsuit is specifically geared towards North 6, who did the ad campaign for the Spring 2023. The issue with the Spring 2023 campaign is this Supreme Court document that is underneath the black purse, right? The case is United States versus Williams. It's a case about a man who was accused of distributing and being in possession of child pornography. And this case went all the way up to the Supreme Court because although the defendant Williams pleaded guilty to the count, he reserved the right to appeal the specific pandering statute. And at first, I actually thought the Supreme Court held that child pornography was protected speech under the First Amendment. And thankfully, as I did deeper research on the case, which is very complicated in all of its different appeals, I found out that that's not true. The Supreme Court actually held that child pornography is not protected under the First Amendment. And I was really glad for that because, man, if that case went the other way, this would be another nail in the coffin for Balenciaga. Now, Balenciaga is claiming that it had no knowledge, right? It didn't approve these photos. It did not approve the props. Let's break that down a little bit. Is it possible that they had no approval rights? I would have have to say, after working in Hollywood, it's an emphatic no. So in Hollywood, everyone that's hired to work on a movie is work for hire, meaning the studio and the producers in charge, they hold final say. They have final approval because everyone who works, let's say, for example, the set designer, they do everything at the direction of the producer or the studio heads. And to say that Balenciaga had no approval rights is, I think, going to be a hard sell, because there had to have been a creative campaign idea that probably came from their creative designer, whose name is Demna. He just goes by one name. And before this campaign and all of its photographs were finalized, there probably were many times of approvals. There's evidence that there were representatives from Balenciaga on the shoots themselves. Now, it's very possible, and in my research has showed that these documents came from a prop house, and potentially the prop house might have had documents from a TV show that they used. And it wasn't until some very eagle-eyed law fanatics looked closely and zoomed in on the documents, then they realized that which case it was. So it's very possible. I mean, it's possible that people just glancing at this would not know what case that is, right? It wasn't until someone did the research, looked up the case name, did they realize what this case was really about. Now, because it's so offensive and disturbing, Balenciaga has come out and apologized, right, for both campaigns. It's pulled both campaigns. It stated, "We would like to address the controversy surrounding our recent ad campaigns. We strongly condemn child abuse. It was never our intent to include it in our narrative." It goes on to explain that children posing with teddy bear wearing BDSM inspired outfits, and another copy of the Supreme Court decision in the United States v. Williams, came to be through third parties. And although the brand admits a lack of oversight and judgment, the two separate ad campaigns in question reflect a series of grievous errors for which Balenciaga takes full responsibility, reads the statement. While internal and external investigations are ongoing, we are taking the following actions. We are closely revising our organization and collective ways of working. We are reinforcing the structures around our creative processes and validation steps. We want to ensure that new controls mark a pivot and will prevent this from happening again. The brand is also laying the groundwork with organizations who specialize in child protection and aims at ending child abuse and exploitation. And then 3 days after the statement, Balenciaga filed a complaint suing North 6 and its set designer. If you feel like you've learned something from this video and it's been of value, please consider subscribing. It means a lot to me and it really helps to support my new channel. So the fact that Balenciaga is trying to shift blame over to its production house and the set designer is going to be a hard sell. I mean, in ad campaigns like this, the client, who is Balenciaga here, has final approval. I doubt that they are a chill company that just decides, oh yeah, like you North 6, go ahead and approve all the photos and send them to the press and we won't look at it again. I mean, that would be ridiculous. They are a luxury fashion house. These campaigns probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to shoot and produce, if not even more money than that. There's no way that its probably chief marketing officer or its chief creative officer wouldn't have approved these photos before they went. And the fact that these children were hired to be featured in these ads was not a mistake. I mean, somebody very high in the organization, probably the creative director, probably thought, okay, we're going to use children in these marketing. I mean, it was probably tied into Gabriel's Toy Stories, right? I mean, he had kids in his stories, and so they wanted to use kids here. It became very, I want to use the word perverted, right? Perverted meaning the intent of the campaign from the original Toy Stories really deviated from the original kind of sweet nature of the original Toy Stories. These children should never have been put together with teddy bears and bondage wear. I mean, I think if they had adults in these ads, it would have been fine. Now, what people have to realize is these are two different campaigns. One was released several weeks before with the holiday campaign. That's the children with the bears. The second campaign is the spring 2023 with the US v. Williams opinion. Now, the two of them together seem like a very strange coincidence, but there might be an argument to be made that, yeah, maybe, you know, this document perhaps just made it into the set as a prop design, but it seems very strange because this is not a super famous case. Even the way it was printed it's not a document that would just be in wide circulation. The fact that Michael Borremans' book was on the desk of the spring campaign is very, very suspicious. It's very curious because here's a man whose art features children in very sinister situations. It's very graphic. I don't even really want to describe it because it's so disturbing. I think the fact that these three things would seem to imply that someone had a very consistent theme or idea they were going for. I am curious if this case will go to trial because I think it will get dismissed. That's my guess right now. How could Balenciaga prove that they had no approval over this? How could they prove that North 6 took malicious, intentional action to make this happen, right? I think they will be able to have a defense that these were just prop documents. They had no idea what was being shown. Now, I think it will be very curious to find out who directed them to put those specific books. There are two books, one from Matthew Barney, which talks about the Cream Master cycle, which is a very dark book, and then Borremans' As Sweet as It Gets, which features these children in very dark and violent situations. I think ultimately, like the Barbra Streisand effect, it probably would have been better if Balenciaga didn't try to create more attention by suing someone. In the Barbra Streisand situation, basically what happened was her extravagant home in Malibu got featured in some photographs. So it was the California Coastal Records Project. So basically in 2003, Barbra Streisand sued to suppress aerial photos that were taken of the California coastline. And she basically sued to get those photos suppressed. But by doing that, it brought way more attention to it. And I think this is exactly what's happening with Balenciaga. I think by trying to shift blame over to a third party who was just basically a work for hire, who has no approval rights the way Balenciaga did, they're basically making things worse by trying to blame the set designer and the production house, and even indirectly but to the photographer of the Toy Stories series. It's really unfortunate. If you learned something from this video and you want to learn more about why Ticketmaster is a monopoly, make sure to catch my deep dive here. This is Tyler. Thanks for joining me today. I will see you guys next time. Okay, bye.